welcome to Power of Story podcast. We share personal testimonies that reveal life's ups and downs, from victories to lessons learned. Join us for stories that connect, inspire, and change how we see the world. Don't miss out on this journey of discovery and connection. Hi everybody, welcome to Power of Story podcast. Today with us is my brother Nelson.
Bonjour.
And if you had a chance to see my first episode, I actually talked about fear and this painting, which he painted. So today I just wanted to, grab a coffee, sit back, and and just talk about it. Talk about what it meant to me and what I saw when I saw the picture, but also to hear and see your perspective, right? Because that's important for to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So I specifically spoke about fear, and the first time that I felt fear entered my life. And then when you showed up with the painting a few years ago, and you talked about it before, you painted it and you a few little areas, and then I kind of asked you, who am I here? Which one am I, right? And you're like, yeah, this is you right there. And I'm like, okay. And then you explained a little bit of what the picture was.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then I realized, fear. This is my fear right here. That's what I've been looking at, right? And I think for many years, I thought it was something that only I felt or no one else could see that in me until you brought it up.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Thank you.
Really?
No, for real, yeah. Because that's
Oh, you're welcome. I don't mean really to thank you, but
but that's what it was. I was like, shoot. Obviously, it's not just a tree. And then you explain there's a shadow, right? And then you explain what the butterflies were. But anyhow, I want you to explain it. And what inspired you to do this picture?
well, this picture, funny enough, wasn't meant to have anything to do with fear. This was supposed to be freedom. I don't know if you remember, in our backyard, there was a huge bush that used to fill up with butterflies.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes.
then the whole bush would be covered with these orange monarch butterflies, and then they would fly away. For some reason, that always used to stick in my head.
Okay, so to you, it represents freedom.
Yes.
And to me, it represented my fear.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing. It started off being about capturing a moment that I liked, right? I always thought those butterflies escaping was that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I just wanted to I wanted to have the ability to fly away like they would and escape that nightmare we were living.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of image is stuck in my head. So that's why I'm using the butterflies as a way to escape, right? To leave.
Yeah.
It's freedom. It was meant to be freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
But somewhere in the process, fear kicked in.
And does the tree represent fear to you too? Or is it something else? Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe you don't have fear represented here.
Well, no, I definitely have fear represented here because I position myself in a spot of fear, right?
And that's you right there.
Yeah.
And you do have some blue butterfly on your shoulder.
Yes.
Now that I really look at it.
Oh yeah, because it's my favorite color, right?
Yeah.
So I painted that. But it also means how different I felt from everybody.
Mm-hmm. Because you're not holding any butterflies.
No, I'm afraid. See, she's brave enough to let go.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's how I viewed some people, right? As being brave and not caring, they could just escape and they're ready to roll. And everybody else was just sort of having fun in life.
Yeah.
But, particularly you here, I just figured you were more of the caregiver.
Yes.
Sort of composed, ready to go. But I mean, you're holding the butterflies, but it's not like you're ready to take off with them. They're just sort of it's kind of for show.
Yeah. I have the tools, but I'm
You're
not
just
gonna use
keeping
them.
it together. Yes, you're just keeping it together.
Which is true. Which is what I shared in episode 1. Is that I think because of what we did go through, and you're right. I did take I think in order to survive what we did go through, that I took on a purpose, and that was I'm going to take care of my siblings, my younger siblings, right? And that purpose, in order to survive it, I needed to look all composed and all ready to go. And inside, I was probably feeling this way, right?
Yes.
But yet, I was like, no, we gotta be strong. You gotta pretend, because these little people are looking up to you, right?
Yes.
Although you and I were only 11 months apart.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not like, I held the world in my shoulders. I did not. But as a child, it feels that way, right? It feels that way. I think, when there were arguments, or when Dad would show up, a little bit drunk, that automatically we were in that survival mode, right? We gotta leave, we gotta get out, we gotta do something, right? And that's something we care. I shouldn't say we, but I know that I carried a lot of that with me, that fear of holding back.
Yes.
And just not being brave enough.
Well, I mean,
And there's still part of me today like this, for sure.
yeah, and that's why the tree casts the biggest shadow on you, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't notice that.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I see the shadow, I see it. But it's true, because you live that way, right? We live that way.
Well, to take on that responsibility, you take the bigger load. Everybody else can just feel what they need to feel and move on. But in order for you to keep it together, you have to also keep it.
Yeah.
You have to keep the fear.
And letting go is tough. Letting go of that, it's super tough, because it's not just. I feel the fear that I have. It's paralyzing. It paralyzes you. And yes, it's represented as a tree here, but in my life, a voice brought fear, an emotion brought fear. Like I remember I think how would you call that? The mailbox going.
Yeah.
That brought fear, or even a piece of clothing would bring fear, right? So it's not just.
So it's like a PTSD.
Yeah. It's like little things would be like, and then your stomach starts to hurt, and you start to shake. But then you're right. It's like, compose yourself. We gotta get through this. We gotta concentrate.
So you have what the different things can trigger.
Yes.
Familiar sounds, maybe.
Yeah. Because you automatically think.
Sorry, it's just crazy. It doesn't seem like that. You don't compose yourself that way, I suppose.
I mean, I am much better. I mean, like I said, I think my faith in God helped that journey. And everybody has a different journey to deal with certain things. My faith in God has helped me with that journey. That's not everybody's journey. I understand that. To me, that really helped. And just knowing that somebody out there loved me. To me, that was important. You are loved. And at least that's what I learned from God. Like, you are loved. No matter what, you are loved. And that helped me slowly to fight these things, right? You can fight these things slowly. But I'm not going to sit here and say, I have no fear now. It's all gone. No, it's a battle. It's a constant battle. It's like, hey, it's okay to feel that way, but you gotta fight it. You gotta fight it.
What do you mean by fight?
For example, I can't swim. Because, well, you and I mean, we can probably remember it differently, but remember when we were both sitting at the dock by the ocean and we got thrown in? Just like little rag dolls in the ocean, so tiny.
Figure it out.
That caused.
Like the Spartan days.
That was for me. Like, I think I started peeing in my bed right after that, and I stuttered because that was the fear. Remember when I was younger, I would stutter for like a year, 2 years. I stuttered.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
But sort of.
Yeah. So I was afraid of the ocean. Like, I couldn't even get near it. But now I can go in the ocean. I can swim, and I know my boundaries. But I don't have that fear. Like, I can be by it. I can put my feet on it, in it. I think that's fighting fear.
True.
What about you? Is there still a little bit of that in you too?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's always fears. What are these fears? They're fears. They're hard to explain. It's kind of like the fear that we immediately kicked in as soon as this camera went on. Right?
Absolutely.
So I hope my voice is not all over the place.
Because you're just taking that microphone and not doing what you're supposed to do.
I'm supposed to hold it like this, I know.
You're not, it's okay.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of fear. I guess if you let fear stick around long enough, it's just gonna beat you down into not thinking you're good enough.
Yeah.
Right, and then the fear of being found out then becomes the overwhelming fear, the one that takes over, right? Because the other fears, the physical fear is like not getting into water. That's a real thing, but you can manage if you don't have to swim, if you don't have to. It's the fears that interfere with your day-to-day life that you really need to address. And the one that you sort of feel like a big imposter, that you're not good enough, and then if people find out, specifically if people find out, then you're going to be ousted, right? You're going to be exposed.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
So it's the idea that you made up about yourself when those things happen to you, and whether or not the idea you made up about yourself has stayed with you, has evolved. I think that's what it boils down to. These fears, right? These things, they boil down into, again, who did you believe you were when these things were happening to you, and do you still partially believe those things?
Well, as afraid, I don't know if this makes any sense. As afraid as I was, I also found strength in it. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah.
So as scared as I was of what was happening around us, I still could look out and look in and be like, I handled that pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't too bad. Like, I'm just a kid. I'm just 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Like, I handled that pretty good. So yes, there was that scary part of it, but I could step out and be like, you did okay. Like, you did all right.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot of good characteristics about yourself that comes from that environment.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with a bad, I was about to swear, this is for a Christian, this is a Christian group mostly.
Yes, it is. No, it's not.
No, it wasn't going to be that bad of a bad word. But that's the thing about a bad upbringing. It's not, there's a lot of good character that can come from a bad upbringing, a troublesome upbringing, a challenging upbringing.
Yeah.
You can learn patience. You can learn gratitude. You can learn how to just be conscious of other people's needs too, right? Yeah. There's a lot of good things that can come from a bad upbringing. Just like there's a lot of bad things that can come from a spoiled upbringing where everything's handed to you. Yeah. So I don't even like to dwell so much on the idea that, I had a bad upbringing and that's the reason why things are the way they are because they are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, this is a painting of the past. It's not meant to be a dwelling of the past.
Not at all.
For me, I don't particularly care for this painting now anymore. I don't think it was just a moment. It was a moment. It's almost too real to me right now, and I think that the fear comes out more than what I actually intended, which was freedom and everything. But this, this tree particularly, I just couldn't bring it back to life. It became dark and it took over, and it just didn't let me.
Because
It didn't let me do any anymore.
from what I mean, we just talked about it today too. Because you haven't seen this picture for a bit,
Not
so
years.
you did say that originally, and I mean, obviously you guys can't see it, but you do have pencil drawings of butterflies on this
Yes.
on this tree, right? So you obviously had a different intent of what this was supposed to look like.
Yeah, this whole tree was going to be covered with little tiny butterflies. You see, I started drawing them in. Even have an apple over there for some reason. But kind of like that vision I told you, that
Yeah.
big bush that used to get covered up in butterflies. That's what I wanted to
Yeah.
show here. Just the freedom and then the sort of like an imaginary surrealist thing, right? We could just take off with these paintings,
Yeah.
but the more elements of childhood I put into it, then the more of the reality of that
Came through. Yeah.
until eventually I found no freedom in it at all. Quite the opposite. I actually I had myself painted differently, and
Yes.
then I couldn't lie, so I just painted myself the way it felt. And this is one of the last things I added to this painting.
So you were the last
Mm-hmm.
that you added in.
Yeah.
Did you have? So when you started the painting, did you have a different vision of who you?
Yeah, I would have been flying away with
You were going to be
my own
flying.
butterflies. Sort of like what
What you
I
wanted
wish,
to do.
yes, what I wish I could have done. I wanted to paint and
Yeah.
taking off, because I've always been fascinated with butterflies because of that. I mean, I always, and like I said, like I wished we could do that and just escape, right? That scenario, but I wasn't able to go through with it with the painting. Like I said, the tree became the challenge. It became dark. As much light as I tried adding, because the sun's hitting from this end, and you can see, right, I'm attempting to lighten it up, but it just wouldn't do it for me. The more I would add, then it was just it wouldn't let me. It remained dark, and it stayed dark, and it just this is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to be here. I'm meant to impose, and I'm meant to cast a shadow.
Yeah. This is my reality, right? This
Yes.
was the reality.
Yeah, and then go any further than that.
Do you think? I think as a kid, I had a great imagination, and obviously so did you, because
That's all we had.
right? Because you could. I think I remember coming. You know that mirador that we used to have by the ocean. I would look up and be like, I would think about flying. Now with butterflies, that was never. But just to think, how beautiful would it be to just, take off in that ocean somehow, right? Just escape somehow.
Right. So you had exactly. You
Right.
had
I mean, mine wasn't like this, obviously, but just I remember just that, that lookout that you would just look into that beautiful ocean, be like, just to escape, just to leave, right?
Yeah.
I had a great imagination. I think I did.
Yeah, to be able to just pack up and go. To me, that's kind of how I live life now. Still.
But I also think that this here build, obviously, like we mentioned, each other's characters. I mean, we are who we are today because of this, right? Because of what we went through. Is there anything you would change in the picture today?
If I were
you
to
had
paint
to
it today?
add something, yeah. Or if you pictured it today. Because again, this was a few years ago, different stage.
Yeah, this is almost 10 years ago, if not more. 7, 8, 9. Well, maybe 8.
Yeah, it was around that.
Um,
And have you ever gone
I
back?
don't even think I would paint
the
it.
place?
I wouldn't even.
No?
I wouldn't even paint it. It's not something that. It's not something that. It's out of my head. This image was in my head
Yeah.
for a long time before I painted it. Right. It just. I have these images that come into my head and they'll stick there. And this is one of many things. Sometimes if I don't get it out in some way, it'll stay there. And I always had this image in my head, which was a field that we played in,
Which I remember by the house.
and
Yes.
and then a tree. Originally, I was going to do a bush, but I thought a bush would be too uninteresting, so I decided to go with a tree. And then the butterflies, I covered in butterflies, and then kids playing. in a field around the tree and then just sort of flying off, but just playing with the butterflies.
So
I always had that image in my head,
yeah.
for some reason.
So I talked about how, I mean, obviously my journey with God helped overcome a bit of fear.
Mm-hmm.
How have you overcome with it?
You just do.
Just do.
Just go do. I mean, just like dive into it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Dive into it, but I mean that's the proper answer.
Yes.
Sometimes, but a lot of times you've been avoiding it. Become a master of avoidance.
That's true. Yeah, that is true.
You get real clever in
avoiding situations.
And how to set up your life.
Yeah.
To avoid your fears, right? To stay within your comfort zone. We become masters at that.
That's true. That's
right?
true.
I think, and that's why. Why is it that when we do find the comfort, a certain type of comfort, it's never really that comforting, not for long.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason why that happens is because we're seeking out that comfort to escape something we don't want to deal with. Some sort of fear, right? So we seek comfort in that sense, and it never feels comfortable after a while. It's always temporary.
Yeah.
Because then when your demons, right, find you in your comfort that you've worked so hard to set up, there's nothing more disappointing than that.
That's true. That is true.
And that kind of comfort is completely different than you setting up a life comfortable with your family, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want a house so that my kids are comfortable. Well, that's different. That's a different kind of comfort. That comfort lasts. You can find a certain amount of happiness, a lasting happiness in that sort of comfort. But there's the other comforts too. There's the personal comforts. They could be career, they could be friendships,
Mm-hmm.
they could be a bunch of different things that we build specifically, strategically to avoid our fears. You might not like a particular type of person, just because that kind of person triggers something in you, right? So you'll avoid them. You might even say that they're no good, or
just avoid. That. Yeah, you're right.
You won't even go in that direction. You might. I don't know. There's so many different things. We give examples, and when I say these things, they're things that I've done myself.
That you've done yourself. Yeah, no, for sure. I think for a long time I struggled with like people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
Like instead of worrying about what I thought.
Can I lean back and still be on camera?
Nope, you cannot. I think for a long time I would struggle with people pleasing. Like I would do something, and then I'm gonna say expect someone to say, "Hey, good job," right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, good job. You did a good job, and I think it's just because I never got that. Right.
The validation.
Yeah. So as a young adult, I would say my 20s. Like I needed that. It was like I'm gonna work hard, but I needed, and most of the time you didn't hear it. Just to be honest.
Yeah.
But it was like, okay, maybe if I'm nicer, or maybe if I work harder, or maybe if I'm a better friend, or like you give, and you're expecting that good job.
Yeah.
You did great, and you never hear, and it's like.
But you think that comes though from a need, because of a lack of
hearing I think
it?
So, absolutely.
Or is it from?
I think it is.
Or is it because if it doesn't happen, it's triggering to a deeper belief that you have about yourself, that maybe you're not good enough?
It could be both. It could have been both.
Both have different implications.
Yeah, it could. I mean, maybe different. What do you call it? Different stages. Maybe it meant different things. I don't know. It could have. You're right. It could have.
It's worth exploring, figuring out, because one is a bit okay. Well, it's something that I lacked.
Yes.
In that thought process, you are still dishing blame towards something, a lack of something that was given to you, and I think with that mindset, it's always harder to function from.
Yes.
If you go into the actual problem, I believe, and I'm not saying this is right, I could be wrong here, this is personal to you, but I find from a personal experience, it has nothing to do with what I was lacking. I'm not living the past right now.
Yeah.
Not lacking anything. This is here now. It was from this belief of inferiority. That part of yourself still lives, right? Still lives inside me, right? Still yearns for things.
That little boy.
It's not dwelling on the past.
Yeah.
It's not living in the past. It's living here in the present. So whatever it feels, it is feeling from a current moment, from a present moment, not from a lack of what
you didn't have
in the past.
No.
That's our own ideas.
Yeah.
That's us trying to figure out what it is. No, it's present. It's now. So if that part of myself, or let's assume that part of yourself, is feeling that way, it is present. It is living inside you. Yes, then you will require that validation from people right now, in the present, irrelevant of what happened to you or what you didn't or didn't get enough of in the past. That's not right now. You need that now.
Yeah.
Right, and in thinking that you take on full responsibility from that point forward, right? There is no one to blame here.
Yeah.
There is just what you have in your hands and what you're gonna have to work with.
And I think I've definitely gone better at it, for sure, absolutely. But it was something I struggled with, absolutely. It was, and and being a young mom, things. It's like, are you good enough? Did you do this right? Didn't you do that right?
Yeah.
Is this okay? Is that not okay? Do I have a good job? All of that. And I think there were moments, like I said, especially on my 20s, I just wanted to hear somebody say, "You're doing a good job. Everything's okay. You're doing all right."
Yeah.
Just not getting that. It did play a role in my life in my 20s, for sure, absolutely. And then, like you mentioned, there comes a time in your life that you're like, okay, I can't go on with this condition in me, right? I got to do something to get out of here, right? And then slowly, it was not overnight. It wasn't in a blink of an eye. It's work. It takes work. It takes work to stop feeling this way all the time, right?
Well,
but there are moments that I still feel.
It's interesting that you say that. You said to stop this feeling inside me, or you're like, what is it you're trying to stop? Like, what is it that you're trying to control here?
No, just to feel that necessity that I need validation, or I need someone.
So you want to stop feeling that way?
Yeah. Who cares what anybody thinks, right? I'm going to live my life, and if.
But how do you go? How do you do? Like, what exactly have you done?
I think just stop caring. I think I just care too much.
You have the power to do that?
I just wanted to fit in, right? I wanted to fit in, and again, it was in my mind. It was all in my mind. I don't think none of those things were really happening. It was in my mind. I was feeling these things for no reason.
I don't. That part I don't agree with. I think it wasn't in your mind. I mean, it was in your mind very much, but it wasn't something that some thought process that just placed itself over there and that you can just make go away.
Again, it took time. I had to train myself. Stop thinking like that. For me. Like, stop thinking like this.
You can do that? You can just stop thinking about something?
Yeah.
You think you have control over your thoughts?
Absolutely. I'm gonna go to work and I'm not gonna worry about if I'm going to please that person or that person. Who cares what they think? Yes, I have. It's taken me a long time. It really has.
So I mean, you can pretty much go in there with a
don't be tricking
control.
me. I see your face. I see what you're doing over here. I see you with that microphone, and you're trying to trick me here. But I got a microphone too, right here.
No. It's funny that you say that.
Maybe I'm not expressing it the proper way.
No, to be able to like have that sort of control over your
thoughts. I am able to be like, no, you can't think like that. No, you gotta do better. No, you can't. Because then you constantly live like this, right? And it comes a time that it's like, I gotta take this little look and look the other way, right? And again, definitely having a relationship with God helped me not focus so much on that. I was like, focus on other things. Like, let's focus on the goodness, right? There's so much beauty all around you. Stop looking at that. Yeah. So that part helped me. But again, you live many years with looking that way, that you have to sometimes like stop it, right? You have
Your
to
neck
get
starts
out
to
of
hurt.
here, right? And your neck starts to hurt and everything. And if something happens, automatically you're no. So again, I had to train myself. Stop doing that. And even today, like you feel like sometimes, nope, you gotta go that way.
That's
Right?
what I was gonna ask you. Like, this part of yourself, this.
Are you jealous because I'm capable of doing this and you can't? I'm kidding.
No, I wouldn't say that. But
I can show you the tricks if you need to. I'm kidding.
no, it's. I have no doubt that you have improved that situation.
Mm-hmm.
That's obvious.
Yeah.
I wonder though if, in order for something like that, I see, you have to. The way I look at. Sorry, I thought I heard something. The way I look at something like what you're explaining is we're talking about past trauma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And trauma, it's not something that you can sort of just control in your mind.
Okay.
Like, okay, I can. For starters, I don't think people can control what they think. You know what I mean? For example,
Stop it.
okay, perfect example. What did you feel there? What did you think there? You got
What
scared.
are you doing?
Did you have any control over that?
Yes, I did. I did not pee my pants.
No, but you know what I mean? That was, you have absolutely no control how
I
you
did
felt there.
not
Because
pee my
life is
pants.
going to throw at you whatever it throws at you. So yeah, you can say, listen, I'm going to go out in the world and feel 1,000% today. But you just don't know what life's going to throw at you.
No,
Right? You're going to
I
have
agree
days
with you.
where...
Yes, I agree.
Right?
I agree. You're absolutely right. I think what I meant to say is that when the thoughts come into my mind, I have, trained myself to be like, okay, stop thinking that way. Right? Stop thinking that way. The thoughts still come in your mind, absolutely. But I've like, nope, you can't. Nope, don't do it. Don't
Right.
think that way. But so I guess it's training. I don't know what else you would call that.
You become good at avoiding it.
Or avoiding it.
But what I'm asking you is whatever this versions of yourself, that, you know, this version of yourself, is it still residing in there?
There are situations, absolutely. There are situations that will occur that, you look and you're like, you have fear. You
You can
look
see
at
that
it.
that's that version of yourself reacting.
Absolutely. I would be lying to you and say, no, I've never felt this way again. No.
So essentially what
there are situations in my life that automatically it's like, because that's the memory, right?
Yeah.
But then I'm like, nope, we can't. We got it. No, come on, right?
But that's really think about that. If that version of yourself is still in there, you've just become an expert at shutting it up, controlling it.
But it's
Right? It doesn't make as much noise as it used to when it wasn't as well guarded, as well controlled. There's a very good chance that you've learned to live with it rather than address it.
Isn't that don't we have to live with it?
We do. We can become what's called reactionary in life, where you just sort of, rather than addressing this thing, I think a lot of people in life that live this way, instead of addressing it, really getting down to what needs to be done, we go about dealing with it. And we become really good at dealing with life, right? And what does that mean? It just means that you become really good at reacting to certain things. You're still very much you're living a reactive life. I mean, you're still being triggered by anything, by the smallest. You can still be triggered by the smallest thing, but you've just learned to react a different way. And that's not necessarily a liberating way to live. It's a controlled, well-mannered, works for everyone type of thing. But is it a way to live where you are truly free?
I don't think anybody's truly free. right? I think
That would contradict probably your
I think
beliefs, no?
when we come to God and when we believe in God, we break chains. So these chains have been broken. But the reality is that fear is part of who I was, right? And I don't look at it also now, today. I don't look at it as like you said, an overshadowing and a horrible experience. I try to look at it and be like, okay, what did I learn from it? What good came out of it? And if I ever feel that way, right? Like, for example, a car accident. Automatically, I'm gonna feel that. Oh goodness, what's gonna happen? Is this gonna happen? Is that gonna happen? Those thoughts will come into my mind, but I don't look at it as a negative thing, because automatically the peace that I have inside of me, which is God, will be like, everything's gonna be okay. Everything will be all right. It is, what it's meant to be will be. It will be all right. So as quickly as that feeling comes in, it quickly goes too, because I'm not dwelling on it. I'm not living on it. I'm not living by it. But I'm not going to say that, no, I don't have fear, or I think if I was put in a situation, I think if I visit this place and maybe visit who represented this tree was there with me, and it was having an argument or a fight, I'm not going to tell you that I wouldn't feel.
You wouldn't get triggered.
Because I would feel it. Because feelings are part of who I am, right? Do you know what I mean? So would I be angry and, no, but I think I would be like, oh, this reminds me of something, right? This reminds me of something. But I don't think I would be, I'm not unforgiving. I've forgiven this. This is in the past. This is gone. And I think that's why we're able to talk about it without, feeling like,
no.
See, we're not doing that. But I don't look at it as a, it's part of who I am, right?
Yeah, and I don't. It's
and feeling these little things, I think it's a reminder of who I was. It's just a reminder of who I was and who I became, right? You were here and you've come this far. It's okay. It's all right. Mm-hmm. It's not too bad. And then you teach other people too, right? Listen, you can cope this way. And you're right now. Like, in a perfect world, we would be free, right? We would live.
There is a way.
Free.
There is a way
to just not. But don't you live with fear? I think fear is part of people's lives.
Well, but depends which kind of fear you're talking about.
Right?
There is natural fear, the fear that's embedded in our DNA
to keep you away from danger. Yeah.
And then there's irrational fear, which is fear of being judged.
Yeah.
Well, even that, to some degree, it has some rationality, because we live in a social world, and what you do socially and how you stand socially will affect your chances of survival. Mm-hmm. So even in that aspect, there's some reason for fear.
Yeah.
But there's irrational fear, like speaking in public. I think there was some study that says that people fear that more than dying itself.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so people would rather die than speak.
Wow.
Stand up and speak in public.
That's insane.
For the fear of being judged, this is a common fear actually. Yeah. The fear of being judged, being seen.
Yeah. Well, and especially nowadays, right? Everything is so with social media, and you're just in everybody's face, right?
But what part of yourself, what part of ourselves, right, are we so afraid of seeing? What is it that we don't want people to see? And you wouldn't go to these lengths of hiding, right? If something didn't feel real, if it was just a thought, it wouldn't be that bad. No, there is something real living inside of you, inside of all of us.
Yeah.
And obviously a younger version. And I don't want to sound cliche, but it is a younger version of yourself. Things that I've read over the years and on my own personal experience that triggers most of these fears, these anxieties that you get. It also explains why we keep hiding. See, I believe that when you're young and you experience something traumatic, that it becomes such an overwhelming experience for an undeveloped mind, that your mind at that stage doesn't know what to do. Doesn't It's so overwhelming that your mind literally does not know what to do with that piece of information. And if a child it goes through something traumatic, such as the feeling of, why is this happening to me? Am I not good enough? Why do I get treated this way in other kids? Imagine if a child was being mistreated in whatever way. It doesn't have to be physical. It could be any type of thing. And it had to ask itself that question every single day. And but let's assume that it forgot about it, and the next day it went back into its life, and the same thing happened again. And then at nighttime or whatever, it'd be asking the same question: well, why me? Am I not good enough? Like, what is it about me that's... So I think to cope with that, and to not have to relive that over and over and over, because it'd literally go insane. Anyone would go insane if they had to go through that on a daily basis. I believe, and I think this is what's happening, it that part of themselves, that there's a disconnect that happens, and sort of whatever idea that is formulated around that thought is placed in a different part of the mind, separated from the everyday part of the mind, where the regular memories are stored. And there's a split, a disconnect that happens there, so that this reoccurring thing that happens in their life isn't triggering these thoughts anymore. It's just something that's being completely bypassed, right? It's almost like this traumatic event, this thought process is stored in a void in the mind, a black void, disconnected with everything. It has to be there because it serves a purpose. It just cannot be accessed through the regular memory process. So that, again, the child isn't reliving this constant battle of who am I or what am I. It just sort of accepts what it is, puts it aside, and leaves it there in this void, and life continues.
Yeah.
And of course, when it does this, it also becomes numb to other things that would require that sort of thought process to how do I say, articulate certain things, right? There might be, if it becomes numb to not being loved, then in the future it may block out any possibility of anyone loving them, right? Because that whole part of themselves that can process that has been placed in a safe place, where it can't be accessed and it can't be triggered, and it remains there. That remains there for life. That thought process stays separated. It stays there because you have no access to it through your regular memory. That serves as a double-ended sword. That serves you in the fact that you can survive your childhood and keep yourself sane, but it does you a disservice in the sense that you can't access it to heal yourself. You have no access to it. You can't use your memory and your rationality as an adult to access this and be like, no, this is all gibberish. So what you're saying I believe you're saying that you can access with your mind, you don't actually have access to it. You're disconnected from it. You're trying to heal something with thought, but you don't actually have access to speak to it with thoughts.
So how do you think?
Well, there is a connection there, and this is the part I found to be the chilling part, is that in that thought process, that's in this void it's sort of just suspended in mid darkness. In order for this thought to be real, to be alive, it has to have a conscious keeping it that way. And I believe that the conscious that's there is the conscious of the child. I believe there's a split when trauma happens. There's a split in your personality. There's the personality that you keep and keeps evolving, and there's the version of yourself that experiences the trauma and traps itself in that thought, right? That a thought cannot be a thought, isn't real without conscious behind that thought. So your younger self, your childhood self, the version of yourself that experienced that, became frozen in time, and is stuck in this trauma. It is reliving it over and over. You don't have access it through the thought, but you have access it through feelings, right? There is a connection between that version of yourself and you now, to feeling and nothing else. So when that part of yourself is triggered through external, to the external environment, a person or this or that, that version of yourself feels that all over again, just as if it was a child.
Yeah.
And it transmits that to you through feeling, sort of saying, I'm here. And you feel it.
Yeah.
Because it's not triggering you now, it's triggering you how you were then. So you feel it. You're like, I don't want to feel this. And what do? You quickly, okay, wherever this is coming from, shut the door. Shut it up. Just quiet. Right? And really, really what that version of yourself wants, it just wants to resolve. It wants you to help resolve. Not through thoughts, but through, you need to form a bond. You need to form some form of relationship, some form of acknowledgement of this version of yourself that's been stuck there. Right? And through the acceptance of this, because up until now you've just been ashamed of it. You've been trying to hide it from everyone. You've been trying to pretend it's not there. God forbid anyone even sees that in you, right? Or deep shame that comes from that. But I don't know if it makes sense to you. This is the reason why you feel that you're not good enough. You feel like the senses of inferiority. You feel like you'd be terrified to speak in public, or even like a podcast here. There's a little nervousness there, even though no one's watching this right now.
Yeah.
That's all triggering that part of yourself, right? That is there, but you're so ashamed of it, and it's such a part of yourself that you don't even want to go back to. You just ignore. But that's not how it has to be. It has to be addressed.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I agree. You do have to face. You have to face it. I do agree with that.
Accept it.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Or else you're gonna live in that loop forever, right?
It's gonna be trapped. You're gonna live your life.
Yeah.
Trying to resolve. So if that version of yourself, for example, felt like it was unloved, it will even sabotage your relationships. You will seek out. You may go out and seek out someone. I mean, you're in a relationship. This doesn't apply to you, but let's just say in general, someone that's living with something like this. You might go out and seek out a woman, good woman for you, treats you good. Everything's good for everything, on paper, and even your family's like, this is a good woman for you. But here's the truth. If your inner self does not feel like this woman can somehow help that dynamic that it's stuck in, you're going to reject this person. Because deep down inside, your inner self is going to seek out ways for you to be able to resolve that situation. And how does it do that? Since you're not doing it yourself, since you're not addressing it, it just figures, well, if I can reenact the past dynamics, then maybe through these past dynamics, maybe someone like this past person that caused this pain, maybe if I can reenact that, I can somehow heal this. So in a way, you become controlled.
Looking.
Yes, you become controlled by that version of yourself who's just yelling for acknowledgement and help.
Have you found a way to resolve that?
Yeah, I mean that is a slow thing, right?
Yeah.
That is a slow thing. It's not an easy process.
Yeah.
But I believe it's a more productive process than let's just become really good at controlling the situation.
Yeah.
At sort of shutting the door, shutting it up for a little bit, right? That's a temporary thing. Or this version of yourself needs to be. Okay,
so you sometimes you say, all our past things are in a closet, and there's people that will keep opening that closet all the time. Actually, I just had a conversation today about this. That they'll keep opening that closet just to see what's going on in there. And I just noticed we got super dark in our video. But do you know what I mean? So should that closet be kept open? Like from what you were saying, should we keep that closet open or closed? Or do we have to get in that closet, become uncomfortable, and deal with whatever's in there?
Is the closet a metaphor
for
what I'm talking
fears
about?
and doubt and self-inferiority, like anything like that, right? Where sometimes you're good and then you're like, oh, just let me peek in here, right? Like you never really close that door.
Yeah, like you shouldn't try and mask anything.
So we have to get in that closet and face that.
Well,
as uncomfortable as it is.
There is nothing specific for you to face. There's no specific fear for you to have to face.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no, I need to face swimming or this. I mean, yeah, you could go down that.
Yeah.
And I've done that.
Yeah.
That's just a temporary thing.
Yeah.
It's a temporary high. It's just another way for you to hijack your own thought process into thinking that you're not dealing with any of these things.
Yeah.
And we're very good at that. It's read a book or read a new piece of information that helps, and my brain's going to be distracted for a week or two.
Or I found a solution.
Yeah, I read a new book or I saw a YouTube video and it feels great. Oh yeah, no, this is it. No, but that stuff's always temporary. That's just you giving your brain a distraction. In other words, that's just you just found another blanket to cover over the problem. And that, in time that blanket just goes away. That it becomes useful. Mm-hmm. There is no way to like avoid it. There are clever ways that you can try and live a life to run around it, but there is no way to avoid it. It's always going to catch up with you, no matter where you go, how much you travel, or how many different boyfriends, girlfriends you go through, how many different relationships you go through, whichever clever way one finds to deal with it. At the end of the day, you need to come to face with that which you are most ashamed of, which is this weaker version of yourself, right? A weaker version of yourself that you almost look at in sort of, not despise, but sort of like disappointment, anger, like, I'm angry that this happened, or look, you're not, there's different ways to be angry about it, right? You can be a bit more passive about it, you can be more forward about it, but there's that version of yourself that needs to be looked at with compassion.
Yes.
With compassion, right? With care. You have to have empathy for this version of yourself that's been stuck there all of these years, and not just stuck there, ignored.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, there's a child that's been there that, for whatever reason, for its own survival. Because imagine if you can't make that split when you're young, when you're going through these things, and you can't make that separation.
You're constantly living
this turmoil. Like, you would go insane.
Yeah.
And that happens to some people.
Yeah.
It happens to kids.
Do you, and I know we're a little, not too different, but a little different. So do you believe that finding faith and God and having that as a base in your life, what do you think? Do you think that could help break that cycle or face that fear better, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, we've had lots of talks about religion. You know how I feel. I mean, and my feelings about religion have changed over the years. I used to be a lot more opposed to it. And I think those are mostly out of my own personal biases towards religion, but I don't think faith is a bad thing. I think faith for the most part is a good thing. I thought about it the other day. Faith is direction.
Yes.
Right? And I think that's the most important thing in life, is direction. Not purpose, but direction, right? Just to have
like a compass.
You don't even need the compass, right? You don't even need the compass. We're compass. We live in a world where anything can happen at any point. There's no control. A compass almost suggests that there's some control there, but there is none. You don't know what could happen tomorrow, and your house could go up in flames, or someone could hit you. Life is unpredictable. The wind is blowing in every direction. It could blow you in any direction at any time. There is no compass. But if there's a purpose, if you have your own direction, right, independent of where you think you should be going, then that's important, right? Because no matter what happens, your direction remains the same, right? Well, I just want to get here. Right?
So
in your case with faith,
yeah,
it's an obvious direction, right?
Yeah, for sure, and it definitely has helped. No questions asked. I mean, I think until the day we die, we work on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And we better ourselves. We should be always getting better and trying our best to become better people, right? To live happier, to be free, right?
Yeah,
not
that
for,
part,
not
yes.
for other people, but for yourself, right?
The better part,
right?
I wonder about that too. As if that's an idea that's being sold on us right now. Be better, be the best version of yourself. Like, I really think we are.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think when I say that, it's about happiness. Like, what makes you happy? True happiness, right? Don't mask it. Don't mask it with materialistic stuff. Don't mask it with whatever it is that you're masking it with. Just be true to yourself and be happy at the end of the day. Like, what makes you happy? Truthfully happy. And work on that, right?
Well, but that's a good question. What does make you happy?
Being happy.
Or is it a feeling?
No, it's not just a feeling. I think I'm happy if my kids are happy. That makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a feeling of me, right?
Right.
There are things around me that can make me happy.
Right.
Right.
So it's more dependent on others, right?
It's
How
like,
others
yeah,
feel.
like I want, like if my children are not happy and they're going through something, I'm gonna feel that, right? And that even if I, 6:49 and one of my children is sick, I'm not gonna be happy.
Yeah.
Right? There's that. So my happiness, and maybe it's not the correct way, but it does. Like,
I think you're spot on, actually.
We're talking about the backyard, doing something to the backyard, right? So maybe in a year or
disappearing in the shadows,
or a year and a half, we'll look out there and looking at it will make me happy.
Yes.
Right? It's accomplishment. It's like, okay, we did this. So I think just being around
happy people.
And happy people, right?
It's what makes people happy. Yeah.
Just be genuine and you don't have to be happy all the time. Like, it's not about the feeling of happiness. Woohoo.
Yeah.
No, but just being real. This is real right now, right? And working towards that, right? I think again, it's just an everyday, ongoing, and we are disappearing in the shadows.
The only thing we're gonna be able to see pretty soon is just a tree.
Oh. Wow. We are definitely, if we ever do this again, we need to do it between 5 and 7.
That's for the those out there that actually have lasted this long.
Yes.
In this conversation.
Yes. For those who haven't, c'est la vie.
The 3 of you. Thank you for your support.
Thank you very much. Well, you know what? This was great. And comment, tell us what you think. If there's any questions you want to ask Nelson, write them down.
Yes. We'll have to come back for part 2 because there is a flip side.
There's a flip side, oh Lord.
To the faith part also that can work against you in the sense of
so
how
it's
you
going to
deal
be
with
more
your
of
fears.
a debate. It's going to be more of a debate.
No, it's not a debate.
I'm kidding.
No, it's just there is another side to it also. I think that can be a disservice. I gave you the good part, but there can be one.
That's not
as that can maybe help explain why maybe some people who find faith still don't find peace. It will never be that faith causes issues. No, that's not what I'm saying. But there can be situations where even faith doesn't seem to be dealing with the issues.
That they're not.
And that's a mindset. I think that happens. But
we'll do that for part 2.
For another time.
All right. Well, thank you for joining in.